This has been the most annoying thing about having a draft horse. Do draft horses make good trail horses? Hi, my name is Stephanie, and on my channel I catalog my adventures with my draft horse, Fame. We exclusively trail ride and horse camp, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to share with you what I've seen as some of the pros and cons of having a draft horse for trail riding. So let's talk about some of the pros. So one of the biggest stereotypes of draft horses is the gentle giant stereotype, and it leads a lot of people to immediately go, oh, they must be great on trail. Fame definitely fits a lot of that stereotype. He's a very relaxed, very chill, very easygoing kind of guy. He's sort of got a steady Eddie kind of personality. However, I did invest in a good amount of training before we actually hit the trail. Fame was in training for several months, doing a lot of sensory work and just getting more comfortable before we actually started hitting the trail on a regular basis. And so I would say that while there are a lot of draft horses out there that are just naturally fairly calm or easygoing, it's not a substitute for training. And it's definitely something that you want to look at on an individual basis with a horse, because there are some draft horses that are not easygoing. Maybe they are more nervous, or maybe they just wouldn't make a great trail horse for various reasons. I would strongly encourage you to assess the individual horse's temperament and personality, look at the training that they've had, look at their background and their environment before making a decision about whether or not they're going to be a good fit for you on the trail. Another thing that I absolutely love about my horse Fame is his stamina and his work ethic. This is something that actually I saw a lot of different opinions on some of the online forums. One of the first comparisons people will make is, oh, well, because they're draft, there's no way they're gonna have enough endurance for trail, or it maybe won't be as good as some of the light horses. Fame's endurance and stamina has been completely adequate for the type of riding that I like to do. And just to give you an idea, because when people say, oh, I like to trail ride, that can mean a lot of different things. On our peak weeks, we were doing 3 and 4 rides a week, 30 miles in total, over 3,000 feet of elevation gain, the total accumulation of about 8 hours. So you can see that he got pretty fit, and really the thing that sort of put a wrench in our plans this year is California got hit with a lot of really intense fires, and so there was about 3 months where we pretty much could not ride at all. So next year I'm looking forward to sort of reconditioning him up to that point and hopefully beyond. At the peak of his fitness, he was one of the most fit horses that I was around. We would trail ride with groups of friends, and Fame would outpace the other horses. He could go for just as long or longer. Other horses would get tired and need a break, and he was still ready to keep going. So stamina has definitely not been an issue with us whatsoever, and I think a lot of that just has to do with the conditioning that we worked toward. You know, if you think about it, a lot of draft horses were meant to plow, where they just put their head down and truck in a straight line. A lot of trail riding is very similar. You're going in a straight line for a lot of the time, and I would say that's been very true of Fame. We would go uphill and he'd put his head down and he would just keep going, plodding along, and we would just pass pretty much everybody by on the way up the hill. Another thing that I absolutely love about having my draft for trail is that he's incredibly forward. This was something I actually wasn't too sure about when I got him, because I'd heard that a lot of draft horses were very slow, or that they required a lot of leg to get them to go. And I've since learned that there are some drafts that are that way, that prefer to just kind of walk most of the trails, but there are also a good number of drafts that are incredibly forward, and maybe more suitable for intermediate or advanced riders as a result. So definitely don't be discouraged if you're someone who likes a forward horse or wants to lope on the trail with regularity. You can certainly find a draft horse that will do that with you. Fame has really big strides, so we tend to just cover a lot of ground naturally. He naturally outpaces a lot of other horses. We do ride with a lot of quarter horses, and we're usually the ones way out in front, and so we're either stopping to wait for them to catch up, or they're trotting to keep up with us. We've even ridden with some gaited horses, and he kept up just fine. So he definitely is a forward horse that likes to go, and I really enjoy that. Another pro that I love is just very personal. It feels very powerful to be on a draft horse. I like the big movement. I like the feeling of being up high, and that's just something personally I really enjoy. Something else that I wasn't expecting when I got a draft horse for trail is how much attention we were going to get. People are constantly stopping me on trail. They want to know what kind of horse he is, how much he eats, how tall he is. And so it's a really wonderful opportunity to talk with people and connect about horses, educate people about trails and etiquette and horse safety and all that kind of stuff. And I've really enjoyed, especially too, a lot of little kids want to come and pet him. So if you end up with a draft horse on the trail, be prepared that people will stop you, people will want to know about your horse, they will want to pet your horse. It just kind of seems to come with the territory when you've got a really large horse. So let's talk about some of the cons. I would say by far, hands down, this has been the most annoying thing about having a draft horse, and that is their height. It also happens to be my favorite thing about draft horses. They're big animals. I love big horses. But when you do trail ride, I do find that we are ducking a lot. We are clearing the cobwebs for everyone else. We're getting whacked in the face with branches. And that's just part of trail riding to a certain extent. But I will say there have been a few trails this year where I actually had to dismount because the branch was so low or so thick that there was no way that I was going to duck that thing. And when you've got a bigger horse and you have to get off, which inevitably at some point on the trail, something will happen. You will drop something, or you won't be able to reach the gate because you're so tall that you'll have to get off. And when you do get off, you've got to get back on. And a lot of times there's a rock or a log, but depending on the trails you ride, there may not always be a mounting block, if you will, that you can find on the trail to help you get back up. So that's definitely something to think about. Are you comfortable mounting from the ground on a really tall horse? Is that a physical possibility for you? Or can you come up with some creative solutions to help you when you're out on the trail? When I think about getting horses in the future, I'm definitely thinking I would get another draft, but I would stick to the shorter end of the spectrum. I would probably stick to like 16 hands or as close to that as I could get. You know, it'd just be a little bit nicer to be a little bit shorter, to be honest. In addition to being tall, they're also a lot more wide. Sometimes this is a problem when you're going through narrow passageways or bridges or passing through gates to get onto the trail. I have had instances where we've been on some single track and we realized, ooh, there's poison oak here, or there's a down tree and we can't pass and we need to turn around. And the bigger your horse is, the trickier it is to navigate that 180 to kind of flip around and go back. They've got bigger feet, so if you ride really craggy, rocky trails, I found that sometimes Fame has a little bit of a harder time figuring out where to put his feet on those types of trails. So a lot of these things really depend on the types of trails that you ride. One thing that I have noticed that might be a minor disadvantage is a little bit of heat intolerance compared to some lighter horses. Fame is a big guy, lots of muscle, it takes a lot of energy for him to move his body, and he's also really hairy. Even his summer coat is a little bit hairier than your typical light horse's summer coat. And I actually clipped him this winter and found that it made a huge difference in helping him stay cool and to keep his stamina and his energy up. And so I'm actually considering clipping him in the summer as well, because sometimes he just comes back completely drenched in sweat. The other horses do too though, so I don't really worry about it too much. I am very careful about not having him out in the extreme heat. In the summertime, we do ride really early in the morning. But if you're someone who lives in a really hot climate, if you're someone who can only ride during the hottest parts of the day, it's possible that a draft may not be a good fit for you for that reason. It's one of those kind of minor things that I can't say for sure, but I think perhaps he might be a little bit more heat intolerant than some of our lighter quarter horse friends. Let's talk about feathers. They are one of the dream features of having a draft horse for a lot of us, and also one of the most annoying things on the trail. So if you're looking at Shires, Clydesdales, drum horses, Friesians, these guys, you know, they got the hairy legs and they're beautiful, but I have found that on the trail they're also burr magnets and tick magnets. And if you live in an area where you're dealing with a lot of burrs or you have a lot of ticks, this is something to think about. It's never really gotten in the way of us having a good time, but I will tell you, one time we ended up off trail on a ride, came back to the parking lot, and I spent 45 minutes picking 76 ticks out of Fame's feathers. So if you think that's something that would drive you nuts, maybe shave the feathers, or maybe you don't get a horse that has feathers, or just recognize that you're going to be, doing the frontline spray and taking some extra time after your rides to take out the burrs and the ticks from the feathers. Whether or not you'll be happy with a draft on the trail, I think really comes down to the types of trails that you ride. If you have a lot of big open spaces, you don't really have to worry about the trees hitting you. That's a plus. If you're comfortable mounting from the ground, or you have some other creative solutions for that, then that's not really a big deal. I think the type of horses you're used to riding, some drafts are really comfortable to ride, some are a little more on the choppy side. Again, this is true of a lot of horses. So try out the horse that you're interested in, and really I would focus more on the individual horse than focusing too much on breed. I'm curious to know what you see as sort of the biggest pros and cons for a draft horse on the trail. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you're a draft horse owner and you ride trails, I'd love to hear about your experience as well. Do you agree with some of these things? Do you disagree with some of these things? Can you relate? Leave me a comment. And if you'd like to see Fame in action on the trail, loping with his hair flowing in the wind, then check out this video right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.